coordinators and members of the Civil Military Corporation, CIMICO, to the Ministry of Power. Before I go on, I want to tender a sincere apology for keeping you for close to 1 hour. The meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m. In fact, we rounded up an earlier meeting that we had to enable us meet up with the 3 p.m. schedule. Unfortunately, there was a little mix-up. We are waiting for the media team to come because this meeting is so important to us that we want to give it all the publicity it deserves. So I didn't want to hold this meeting without media presence. But Nigerians must be aware that some people are still so patriotic and nationalistic and are ready to protect our collective assets jealously without expecting any personal benefit. Nigerians must be aware of this. So I didn't want to have this meeting behind closed doors. It must be in the open. And I believe that it's going to send the right signals to the vandals of our collective assets. That's why I said, until the pressmen arrive here, we will not start it. Because whatever is worth doing at all is worth doing well. And our job starts from awareness creation. It starts from sensitization and sending the right signals to the general public that it is no longer business as usual. We deserve good livelihood, and one of the basic amenities that guarantee livelihood is energy. We need it in everything that we do. And no sector can operate optimally without stability in the power sector. So I want to tender our unreserved apology for keeping you. We appreciate your presence. It is not our character to delay our guests. I mean, not even so much important guests that we have in our midst today. So I hope our apology is accepted. Thank you very much. Then we can start up the meeting. When I got this courtesy call, I was actually excited. I was elated because we all know what vandalization of our power assets, of our national assets, the negative role it plays in depriving us of stable electricity supply to our households, to our businesses, to our institutions, health, educational institutions, and industries in general, which is why the country has performed below par since independence. The jobs are not coming out, but the industries to create the jobs are not there. We are heavily import dependent. The industries to manufacture what we use, they are not here. Our exports are being sent out in their raw form as very cheap products without any value addition locally here. All this is dependent on power generation. So we cannot overemphasize the importance of power infrastructure to our livelihood and to the very essence of our existence as human beings. So protection of such assets should be one of our greatest priority in these parts of the world because it affects us all. And the protection must be done jointly. It's not something that should be left with the Ministry of Power alone. In fact, we don't even have what it takes to protect. But all these assets are scattered all over the country, especially in remote areas. And we have witnessed incessant vandalization of these assets that have frustrated the efforts of not just the ministry, but all its associated agencies. Especially we have the Transmission Company of Nigeria with high voltage transmission wire lines that have been destroyed on a daily basis. The towers have been brought down, the cables have been stolen, the substations have been looted. And this administration has promised that one of the major electoral promises of Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, is to provide stable electric supply to all of us. He cannot achieve that without the kind of work that you are doing. So I want to thank you for coming, even though this is supposed to be a welcoming remark, so as to listen to you first before we respond. But I mean, proactively, I want to thank you up front for the job that you have been doing. So when I got the request, I said, we must find time to receive you. This should have been done earlier than now, but because of the busy schedule that we have. And I wanted to personally receive you into our office so I can have a useful conversation to move our country forward. I think I would like to stop here without going to the full details of the functions of the ministry and our agencies, what we do, and our plan to transform, to reform this sector so that we can have a productive country that produces what we consume. You're welcome to Ministry of Power. Thank you very much.
Knowing full well that it's the bedrock of national security. Foremostly, as a platform of civil society, we had to appreciate the fact that national security policies and agenda of government as unassertive, unproductive, this government policy, this which is erroneous to a very significant extent. And until we begin to take ownership of governance, the citizenry begin to see government not as the epicenter of society, but that the citizenry own the government and should participate in governance, inclusive of protection of our critical national assets and infrastructure, the power sector will not function optimally. And if the power sector doesn't function optimally, we cannot have our economy run on full throttle. There will be sabotage of our economy. No job, there will be unemployment, and that breeds national security threat. Everybody begins to try hands on opportunity, crime, and etc. So we met as a platform with the Defense Headquarters in 2019 precisely, and we said, look, how do we foster a relationship, civil-military cooperation, so that we can galvanize the civil society of the country, so that we can begin to see public policy as our policy. We can begin to key in genuine civil societies, not these briefcase organizations that people manufacture overnight. If they hate Adams or if they hate the minister, they say coalition of this, the minister is a criminal, Adams is a criminal. We can't continue to run like that as a people. So we needed to galvanize genuine nation building, and as you mentioned, nationalists, patriotic nationalists who have the interest of the country at heart to come together. And we've been working assiduously beneath the table, on hard, because it's not about propaganda. Enough of propaganda in the country which can't take us so far. So we came together and we galvanized civil society, and various agencies, especially security agencies, began to key into the vision, into the initiatives. Today we are glad to mention to you that the Defense Headquarters, of course, General Adamu will have been here. On his way, he had to get to another destination. And the Nigerian security system, I'm glad you have the civil defense, you have the DSS, you have the national orientation, that we meet and we synergize with other agencies of government to see how we can have that citizens key in and buy into public policies, programs, and agenda. That is the key to sustainable national development. And we identify energy security as a core component, as we mentioned. Without energy resilience, without performance in the sector, if we are not being able to get it right to protect our national asset, energy infrastructure, we will not be able to attain and have full-fledged energy responsibility, predictability, transparency, and accountability as we ought to have. And therefore, we held the first civic forum. All the stakeholders, inclusive of the distribution companies, were around. And for us to have been able to canvass all the stakeholders, that speaks to the importance and relevance of the program. We met there, we discussed how do we foster resilience, how do we foster performance, how do the civil society key into monitoring and reporting energy security in the country, how do we work at the grassroots to prevent energy theft, to prevent vandalism, to prevent all these challenges that attend to the energy sector. And we had to set up a committee called the Citizens Committee on Energy Security, comprising of all the services that are relevant to the sector, particularly to national security. And we're even glad that at that event you nominated a representative, and that speaks to the importance or how you accrue importance to that initiative. And we met, we discussed, and came up with specific programs that we should undertake to foster our contribution to energy security. Because the national security strategy of the country stipulates clearly that there has to be a mandatory mobilization of the full spectrum of national power in a comprehensive, inclusive, participatory manner of all stakeholders to give an all-inclusive meaning to the concept of our national security and development. And therefore, we have to, as a committee, come together. How do we embark on this journey of galvanizing and strengthening our sector? And at that level, on 4th of June, we resolved to inaugurate the committee on the 2nd of July, 2024. That was last month. And gladly, the Honorable Minister of State for Police Affairs hosted that inaugural session in her conference room. We are glad her representative is here, Mr. Akali, FSI. And at that level, we discussed and agreed to have a courtesy visit on the Honorable Minister of Power. It was on that note that we had to write a letter to you. And of course, the promptness with which you accepted the letter, through, of course, the working of Mr. Eugene, who is represented at the committee, the Department of Distribution, speaks to the fact that you are really conscious and interested in enhancing this sector. It speaks further to your profound personal dedication to the evolution and development of the sector. And of course, by what you have done, your antecedents, since you became the minister, from afar, we followed your antecedents. You were committed to the issue of cost-based reflective tariff, which you had pursued. The metering that was halted and you reinvented. The commitment that you say we have to generate 6,000 megawatts and you are pursuing it. The commissioning of the power plant at Zengero that has upgraded the grid. All these things speak to your commitment to the sector. And at this point in time in our country, with all due respect, this is exactly what we need. We have a country that we are teetering, and it is a call on all citizens. Of course, we take the occasion that all citizens, whether you are in government or you are not in government, our first appreciation is that the country is our country. It's our collective patrimony. It doesn't matter the administration in power. Administrations will come and go. The Minister of Power will come and go. Another minister will come. So our endearment should first of all be to the brand called Nigeria. Not because of our personal vendetta with anybody. Therefore, your commitment is commendable. And It was Nelson Mandela who said in one of his books, Long Walk to Freedom, that when one has crossed one mountain, he realizes there are several more mountains to cross. And therefore, your commitment, our visit, is to further encourage you. It cannot be enough. You need to redouble efforts, sir, until we are able to achieve maximum and optimal power supply in the sector. We have not arrived yet. It is not yet over. And we cannot even be seen to be publicly seen we have achieved. There are many more mountains to scale. And because you are the holder of the baton for this very strategic sector, all eyes are on you to deliver. We are here to support you to succeed in that delivery. And therefore, sir, we have arrived here with only 4 prayers. All our conversations conjured into 4 prayers. Our first prayer, sir, is that in light of the relevance of this new initiative, this people-oriented initiative, as you mentioned, this initiative that is driven by pure motive of Nigerians, not seeking for money. This is not a time for reward. This is a time for hard work, and hard work, and hard work. For us, we want to first appeal that you use your good offices to convene a strategic meeting between this committee and heads of the Nigeria Electricity Supply Industry, NESI. The essence is for them to key into this vision. While you are at the top, there is need for these various agencies to key into this initiative so that we can drive down and devolve their respective operations to the grassroots and connect them with the local communities and civil societies and citizen groups at the grassroots. So we'll appreciate if you could use your good offices to convene that strategic and all-important meeting so that by the time we sit together, they can appreciate, and at their respective level, we can work together. Of course, for NEC, we've been working with NEC when Kano by November last year, and we've been having interaction, and such interaction make the civil populace appreciate what is going on in the sector. It's against some of the malicious propaganda and blackmail going out there. And because sometimes they say that you can't be a judge in your own case. There are instances that there are allegations that are untrue, propaganda that are untrue about the sector or about the ministry. It will be in the position of the civil society to canvass a third-party advocacy and put it clear to the public that this is the true picture of what's going on. So such a strategic meeting with these heads of NESI would enhance our objectives. Secondly, sir, at the level of that meeting, an important discourse or subject was the issue of the Power Consumer Assistance Fund. And because of the relevance of that fund, PCAF, yes, we do believe that if we effectively implement that fund, it will go a long way to enhance the sector. It requires, of course, mobilization of funds and convincing the public, stakeholders, philanthropists, etc. During COVID, for some of us who are at the forefront of mobilizing the fund for the country, we knew how we were able to galvanize the fund for intervention for the country because we made our appeal to all consents. So we are able to achieve the PCAF effectively and to include vulnerable consumers into the bracket. And therefore, we would like to work and collaborate with the ministry to hold the first national summit on PCAF. Of course, the summit will go ahead or assist in enhancing the objective of the fund and establishment and effective management of the fund, inclusive of including stakeholders and vulnerable consumers in the bracket. And then, thirdly, sir, we have an ongoing civic engagement on energy security that birthed this committee and that we are here today. And therefore, we would like the ministry to key fully, even though the ministry is already a part of the committee. However, we want full throttle for this civic engagement because as it stands, stakeholders are already keen into it. We are glad to report to you, sir, that the Just Electricity Distribution today has accepted to host the first zonal civic engagement on energy security. And we are working on it for us to have convinced them, discussed with them, how do we protect our energy infrastructure at that zone? Speaks to the fact that we are really working and have the interests of the country at heart. And for us to convince them further, for the distribution company to be hosting this event without any financial burden on government, speaks to the fact that they are equally very interested in this initiative that we are driving. So we do believe that with the complement of the ministry as the father of the entire sector, all other stakeholders and communities will key into it. And energy vandalism or infrastructure vandalism will become a thing of the past in the country if everybody keys into it and sees it as his or her personal responsibility. So we'll be glad if you could look into that, Honorable Minister, and we can then drive the engagement, not just in Jos, but across the zones of the country and make it periodic. And then, fourthly, we have our annual civil military conference that runs every year, that brings all stakeholders in the country, because national security management is a whole of society responsibility. That is the charter of our national security strategy of 2019. Whole of society means that everybody has to key in. Energy sector has to see the sustainability of the sector as a core component of national security. The water resources sector has to see the same, all the sectors and civil society. And therefore, this year's conference is focused on whole of society approach to national security and development. And at that conference that is bringing both the international community together, both local participants together, all ministries, departments, and agencies of government, international partners, the UN, others are already participating. As of today, 3 ministers have also keyed in, and they will be there in person. We've equally invited Mr. President, His Excellency, as the special guest of honor. The ECOWAS president will be giving the keynote address, and all other stakeholders will be there. We'd like to seize the occasion to officially and formally invite you to be our guest of honor at the event, and also to deliver a paper on safeguarding energy infrastructure, the role of civil societies. It will serve the opportunity to equally and further communicate to the public. Has been working with various stakeholders to enhance and ensure sustainability of our power supply and stability of our energy supply. On this note, Honorable Minister, we are glad once again for your warm reception. And as it is our culture, national security is everybody's responsibility. And on this initiative, we equally want to induct you to be one of us, not just on our committee, but we want you to be one of us. And so that any day, anytime, 10, 20 years from now, you say you are also a pioneer of civil military cooperation in Nigeria and across the world. Permanent member, CIMICO. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The civil military cooperation for the job you are doing to keep the country together, to bring protection, to bring prosperity to our people, unsolicited This is greatly appreciated. Thank you. We want you to keep it up. And I also like the part of regular engagement and interaction so that we will keep you abreast of activities in the power sector so that you be automatic spokespersons for the ministry and the agencies. Thank you for offering to do that. The director, information and public relations is there, madam, and our special advisor of media relations and strategic communication, Tunji Balaji, is there. They have listened to you. We'll see what we can do. An official forum that will regularly bring us together so that we can keep you abreast of latest information on the activities of the ministry. I mean, those are the preambles. Once again, I will also use this opportunity, just take 5-10 minutes out of your time to also brief you on what we do, what we have been doing, and what we have plans to even do more. Like you said, it can never be over. Even though you mentioned it's not over until it is over. Nation building is continuous. We are like soldiers. We play our part, we play our role, and we leave the barrack. Other soldiers will move in. There is no country in the world today that is still not building. Nation building is forever. But what matters most is for each of us to play our role when we have the privilege of finding ourselves on seats of responsibility, on seats of accountability, so that posterity will smile at us. That is it. It continues. We'll play our role and we go. But it's good to leave a good legacy so that others can follow the legacy. At the Ministry of Power, succinctly put, our function is to engender national development through formulation of appropriate public policies and establishment of appropriate institutions to ensure that we provide stable, functional, and affordable electricity supply to the doorsteps of households, businesses, institutions, and industries. That is what we are all about. For energy assets expansion, to reduce or completely eliminate energy poverty, both in the urban, semi-urban, and rural communities that we have in Nigeria. So we are like providing general oversight for the power sector. We have our foot soldiers, that are our agencies. We have the regulator, that is the National Electric Regulatory Commission, NEC, which we've been working with anyway. We have our transmission company, which is still the only fully owned government segment in the power sector value chain. We know that the generation segment has been almost privatized, with some holding by government using the NDPHC. Distribution is fully privatized. So we have the TCN, we have the electrical inspection arm to guarantee quality, and safety of our electrical installations. That is the NEMSA, Nigeria Electricity Management Service Agency. We have the training institution that's focusing on the development of local human capacity for the sector. That is the National Power Training Institute. We have the Nigeria Electricity Liability Management Company, which warehouses all the legacy liabilities of the old power holding company. I mean, the last one is the MBET, which is the Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading Company, which is the middleman between the generating companies and the distribution companies to de-risk the sector for smooth operation. And of recent, we established what we call the FGN Power Company, that is to midwife the Presidential Power Initiatives, popularly known as the Siemens Project, to stabilize our transmission segment of the sector. Then We have, lastly, the producing arm of government, which is the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, that's actually overseeing the activities of the 10 government NIPPs, the National Integrated Power Producing Companies. I mean, we have the Olon Shogu, we have Omotosho, we have Omokun Bini, we have Sapele, we have Giregu, we have Calabar, we have Bahrain, we have Egbema, we have Alaoji, and Omoku. 10 of them, out of which 7 is already working. So those are the foot soldiers that actually help the ministry to implement its oversight responsibility. Beyond that, we have the private sector players, the generating companies, and the distribution companies. So that is what we do as a ministry, and we ensure that each of these entities, they deliver on their own part, because everything put together, this is the only target and objective, to provide stable electricity. So which is why the sector has to work in unison. We cannot work at cross purposes. So that's what we do. Then, in terms of the initiatives of the ministry, like I said, in the next few days will mark my first anniversary of my appointment as a minister. I resumed here 21st of August 2023. And we all know that it is much easier to build afresh than to repair. What we are seeing in the power sector today is a reflection of the actions and inactions of past administrations. Over 60 years of our existence since independence, we have not done the right thing in the power sector, which is why a nation of 220 million people, we are still roving around 5,000 megawatts of power. It is shameful. South Korea, 49 million people, 130,000 megawatts of power. That's why you have their industries developed. The likes of Samsung, the likes of LG, the likes of Hyundai, the likes of Daewoo. These were small shops in the 60s, but because of stable electricity, they were groomed to be industrial global giants today. I can compete with any company anywhere in the North America or Europe. Same with China. They have become a world champion today, closely competing with the United States. They have 1.4 billion people. Today, they are generating 1.3 billion megawatts of power, and they are still counting. They have the biggest hydropower plants in the world. They have invested the most, even in renewable energy, the solar, the wind, and small hydros, and they are still running. So if you are actually sincere about development, the power sector is a priority sector. And if you all listened to the opening speech of Mr. President on the 1st of January 2024, out of about 1.5 hours of reading the speech, he spent not less than 40% explaining his vision to transform and reform the power sector. But if you get this right, it's almost automatic that every other critical sector will be developing. Our markets, our population, they're supposed to be blessing and strength to us, has suddenly become a burden. We have power of consumption, but we don't produce what we consume. So that strength of population and market has become a blessing to other countries. Where those companies are established, they employ their own people, they generate their own revenue, they pay their own tax to their government. Meanwhile, we are struggling to look for foreign exchange to import things. Same with our foreign exchange earnings. We are a monoproduct country with reliance on just oil. 95% of our foreign exchange earning from the supply side is from oil. Anything happens to oil is so fragile. Our non-oil exports, we have not developed it just because we don't have stable electricity. We export cocoa raw. We export our rocks raw, our timber raw. The cocoa, when it gets to where it's going, a bag of cocoa the one we get cannot buy a bar of chocolate that is processed. And the rocks that we export like that, by the time it comes back in tiles and granite, it's expensive. The timbers that we send to overseas, when it comes back, coming back in form of furniture, we cannot afford it. So we need to add value locally and process before we export, so that from the supply side, we can increase our foreign exchange. And from the demand side, we can reduce our request for foreign exchange. The only thing in the middle of all this is power. So the logic is so simple. So without taking too much of your time, we just felt that 5 things that we set out to do for purpose of enlightenment. Number 1 is the legislation, which we are happy Mr. President signed into law, immediately resumed in 2023 by June. Now that we have a decentralization of the sector, whereby subnational government can play in the power sector. All segments in generation, in transmission, in distribution. They can also regulate power sector within their own territory. What we're all used to was Electricity Company of Nigeria, ECN, Nigeria Electrical Power Authority, Electric Power Authority, NEPA, and the Power Holding Company of Nigeria. They were all centralized. They were federal government owned. No states, no local governments could participate, and we have so too long. So when our hardworking president came in, he found that there must be a change in legislation, and he signed into law Electricity Act of 2023. That's the central. Then liberalization. The private sectors now, people with good money, fund for investment from the private sector can now play in this sector, because what we require, government can never provide it alone. And it's an industry that's highly risky. The government will play its role to de-risk it while attracting foreign and local investment. So that act has settled that. And we have been seeing that a number of states are now receiving their regulatory autonomy, which we believe will galvanize further development in the industry. And we have also seen a lot of investment flow into the sector. Because the improvement that we see today is not accidental. It was intentional. The investment in generation, the investment in transmission infrastructure, and the activities, improved activities of the distribution companies. That's why you can see that, I mean, there's some noticeable improvement. Then policy. There must be supportive policy. Your policies must be intentional. You must know where to go and how to drive yourself there, which is why since we resumed with my colleagues at the ministry, we've been working on the National Integrated Electricity Policy and Strategic Implementation Plan that will detail out what we need to do as a country. And it will be associated with an Integrated Resource Plan, IRP, that will serve as our Bible to notice where we are going in the power sector. Once policy is settled, then the next thing, number 3 thing, is the tariff policy, the markets, the commercials. If the price is not right, the technical side can never be right. And that has been the bane of this sector. It's always been subsidized, which is good. Government wanted us to have good life. You have seen I should not pay commercially for this product because I'm a citizen of Nigeria. I'm entitled to enjoy subsidy. But does the government have enough to fund the promised subsidy? No. So all the promised subsidies have been piling up in form of debt to the power generating companies, stifling the industry. We are saying no. We need to start migrating to a cost-reflective tariff. We cannot achieve it overnight, but we must start from one point. So we are in the right direction, because the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step in the right direction, which is why we migrated just 15% numerically of electricity consumers into this full cost-reflective tariff. And those 15% are those with commensurate infrastructure that can actually supply electricity for over 20 hours. So it must be service reflective too. And as we are doing this, the discos are improving other infrastructures to keep migrating and migrating. At the end of the day, the cost is cheaper than using diesel and petrol generators. It is currently 209. Diesel generator is 850 to 900 per kilowatt hour. Petrol generator cost is 450 to 500 per kilowatt hour. Even the industries that have captive power within their own factory is over 350 naira. So the national grid is still the cheapest, which is what we should all work towards. So when we fix this pricing, we could see that activities have improved in the sector is more vibrant, the discos are more responsive, and even the settlement of energy bills has increased from about 9% to then goes to about 40% now. And our target is to hit 70 to 75%, so that government subsidy will not be so much and it will be quite affordable. That is on the tariff, the market, and the commercial. I'm a finance person, so I believe that if you get the commercial right in any industry, there will be more investment that will come into the industry. And the number for us to do is infrastructure. Power is all about infrastructure. All the segments, from the gas supply segment to generation, to transmission, to metering, it's all about infrastructure. We have dilapidated infrastructure, aged infrastructure. We just finished our amendment meeting this morning, and someone was commenting about some transformers that are 64 years old in our substations, carrying the logo of ECN. I mean, Prof, you know better. The Electricity Company of Nigeria. We were not born then. Some of us were not born. So that's why I put that as Prof anyway. So these transformers are even older than the people that are maintaining them. Where would the manuals be? So we've been working on infrastructure, and government has a lot of programs. The PPI is there, all the World Bank intervention, AFD intervention, that's the Siemens project. TCN is doing a lot of work, and a lot of our intervention and supportive agencies to ensure that we fix our infrastructure. And the last one has to do with energy transition. We must also migrate to cleaner energy, because we should not use up our power today and not allow generations to come to enjoy. We must have a sustainable environment, which is why energy expansion and transition to renewable energy is also part of our plans, which is what Rural Electrification Agency is focusing on, and the acting director, Renewable and Rural Access Department, is also at the ministry. Those are the things that we are doing at the ministry, and we have all these plans properly documented, and we are following it logically and religiously. And very soon, whatever you have seen today is a tip of the iceberg. I can tell you, we are just scratching the surface. There are baby steps. By the time we start taking the giant steps, the entire Nigeria will be fully electrified, inshallah. So, to round up this, just respond to what you have said. Three things that I feel can frustrate the modest achievement that we have today. Refusal of electricity consumers to pay their bills. There's nobody that plays to do a business and is not paid for the business. They will close shop. We hit 5,155 megawatts of power on the 9th of August, the highest in 3 years. Yes, we met around 4,000, even less than 4,000 when we resumed. This is just a year. That's about 27% increase. It's quite commendable. But the only way is that it must be sustainable. Yes, so to sustain it, consumers must be ready to pay. Number two, power theft should be discouraged. And the civil societies need to be sensitized that when you see something, you say something. A lot of welders, they work overnight. They just use it to, they just hang their wire at 12 midnight when everybody's sleeping. A lot of people bypass meters. All this will not help the sector. And lastly is vandalization. We need to desist. We are in the office, we are at our power sites, but transmission lines, rural areas, everywhere, transformers, everywhere, deserted. So it is, even the military are only trying, the police are only trying, the SCDC can only try, NOA can only try. But it is the people themselves that can protect these facilities. Yes. So we need to keep sensitizing so that our assets will be protected. So on your request, you gave me 4 requests. Sincerely, they said 100 over 100 is for God. Meeting with the Nigeria electricity supply industry, that there will be regular interaction, there will be regular, conversation, because the name of the game worldwide now is cooperation, collaboration, and partnership. It's CCP. Partnership. We will, as the ministry providing oversight to the industry, will facilitate these meetings. In fact, coincidentally, tomorrow we have a joint meeting with all the discos nationwide. They'll be here in the morning, and in the afternoon, all the generating companies nationwide will be here. So, PS and Ms. Olani, let us put this as part of the agenda for us to discuss. So that is possible. The PCAF, which is the Power Consumers Assistance Fund, there's a section in the Electricity Act of 2023 that elaborates on this, and the power of PCAF and the use of PCAF. Why it has not been activated fully is all the issue of tariff and subsidy. If you are still subsidizing the tariff, where will you get the PCAF fund? But it should be funded from the tariff. But NEC is working on this, and we are going to have what you called the first national summit on the Power Consumers Assistance Fund, so that we'll open it to you and you see it as it is. We'll be transparent. This is what the Act says we should do. These are the uses that we should put it, the objectives, and this is how the funds will be managed. Sincerely, apart from subsidizing the poorest of consumers, this fund should also be used to support your activities in terms of asset protection. And I'll be a champion to ensure that a portion of it is actually dedicated to provision of protection for our power assets. Then the number 3 is the ongoing engagement with the civil community on power security. You want the industry to own it. And you have started making success of this with Just Disco, agreeing to hold the first one. Then once Just Disco holds this one, others will not have a choice. They must follow suit. It's not everything that we should legislate or we should incorporate in the policy, but through moral suasion, a lot of them will support this, and they will own the engagement with civil community, inshallah. Then lastly is the annual civil military conference. This is good, and I can promise you that depending on the date of this, if I'm around, I'll be there in person. Yes. But if it coincides with another previously agreed engagement, the most senior person next to me, who is the permanent secretary, will be there to represent me. It's my work that I'm giving to you. And lastly, to thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate this session, and I want it to be given the widest publicity possible, please, so that people will know that it is no longer business as usual. The vandals should be prepared for strong resistance. And you can see that a number of them have been arrested now. Yeah. In the last 1 week, about 2 or 3 incidences, and they arrested them. But people are now aware. Yes. So when the sector is vibrant, people will be aware of their right over their property. It's a collective national property and must be jealously protected by all of us. We'll try as much as possible, depending on your activities, to also, within the ability of the ministry, to support you with little fund to actually encourage your activities. So thank you so much for coming. We appreciate this. Let us have a way of making it a regular engagement. Thank you. And thank you for honoring with this. As a life member now, whether I'm in the ministry or not, I'm a member. Thank you so much. The PS will do the vote of thanks on our behalf.
Operation, our visiting team from the Civil Military Corporation, Directors of Critical Infrastructure is a collective responsibility, and it is of national security interest. A member from the ministry that is coordinating and representing, we are part of you now. Yes, and I do hope that it's not just the minister, but other members too.
To serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend her. May God, thank you. Sit with of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome. Energy, they've come to pay a courtesy visit. Do self-introduction. I will be starting with the directors of the ministry. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, good afternoon, Honorable Minister. Good afternoon, my name is Engineer.
Good afternoon, my colleagues and other visitors. My name is Mrs.
Permanent Secretary, Minister of Power, and the invited guests.
Afternoon, my permanent secretary and our guest. I am Engineer Abdul Salam Ibrahim.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. Good afternoon, Pamsec, and
Good afternoon, Honorable Permanent Secretary. Welcome our guest. I'm Engineer